Welcome to Scandal Water, where the tea is hot and the conversation lively.
Your hosts, Candy
And Ashley,
will discuss a peculiar story somehow related to the entertainment industry. This podcast might not change the world, but it just might satisfy your thirst for an intriguing tale.
Oh, it's that time of day. Tune in and hear what the ladies say. It's time to bend your ear when the silver screen appears. Stories about the stage and screen and everything in between. So come on and join the fun. The curtain opens in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, Ashley.
hello.
We are about to record our last episode for our February Love Will Keep Us Together series. I think this is going to be another good topic, another good couple.
Yes, definitely.
But they have a little twist to their love story.
I know, I think this is really interesting.
I think it will be interesting to talk about too. And since we have a little twist coming up later, I thought I would also hit you with something a little different here for the beginning. Rather than just jump right into this couple, I'm actually going to show you a little clip of something that happened recently in New York. It's kind of a little, I guess you'll call it a little news clip related to entertainment.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to watch it. It's very short, and then I'll have you tell us what you saw.
Okay. Is this real?
Mm-hmm. I'll stop it there. So what did you see?
And that was real.
Yes, this happened.
Okay, so it said January 14th of this year, they had something that looked like a cubicle set up in Grand Central Station.
That is right.
And actors went into the cubicle and just looked like they were having a normal day, like something you would see on The Office.
100%. That was...
And there was a ton of people watching. Let's put it that way.
A ton of people taking pictures, taking little video
Yes.
clips. It was a promo
Okay.
for a show called Severance. Have you heard of it?
I have heard of it. I have not seen it, but I have heard of it.
I'm actually watching it. Now,
Do you like it?
Well, I will tell you, I do enjoy it. I'm not going to recommend it to all our listeners.
Okay.
It is mature. It's on Apple TV, and I believe the rating is primarily for the language, although it's very dystopian, very sci-fi and different. So possibly the dystopian themes may be part of the maturity rating as well. But it is definitely very engrossing. And did you recognize anybody?
I saw Ben Stiller.
Did you see Ben Stiller?
I did. He was taking a picture and smiling.
Okay, he's there because he's the director
Of the whole show?
of the whole show.
I didn't know that.
Thank you. I did not either. I mean, even watching
Oh.
it, I was so shocked when I figured this out, the connection. They've actually just aired, I guess, released season 2.
Okay.
And it's weekly, so
was
it's not
this-
all out yet.
Was this show then his idea?
To be honest,
Don't
I
know.
did not research to see if he was a writer on the show as
Okay.
well. I
No,
just
that's
know that he is very integral to it.
Okay.
He may be a writer because I know that's his thing, but he is very associated with this. In fact, this was a pop-up is what they called it to promote the release of the new series, and they called him a proud papa, that he was there
He was
watching.
smiling.
Yes,
It looked like he was so happy.
watching his actors and taking photos and videos.
What's that fella's name that had the hair?
Adam Scott?
Yes,
From Parks and Rec.
Yes, they have worked together on The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. So they
Go way back. Yeah. I thought it would be interesting to start that way because Ben Stiller is part of the couple that we are going to be talking about today,
I
of
like
course.
him a lot.
And of course, I like his wife as well, Christine Taylor.
Yes.
But I thought this illustrated the fact that this is a really accomplished guy. He's been in the business forever and ever and ever, and he is still going strong with some very acclaimed and popular works because this show actually has received a lot of praise.
Has it?
Yeah,
Cool.
it has. But we're going to be talking about the couple together, the love story of Ben Stiller and Christine Taylor. Tell me what you know about them,
What I know about them as a couple? Oh.
or individually.
Well, I know a little bit more about him. I know that she was Marcia.
Yes, that is exactly what I go to first.
And she kind of looks like her too. I know she was Marcia in the Brady Bunch movie, and I think she's done other stuff. I don't mean to discount her. I just haven't followed her career as closely as I followed Ben Stiller's because he was in the Night at the Museum movie movies.
Right.
And I think he's a good actor. I think he's a great director. I loved The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. I loved that film, and I thought he was a great director, and he made a good movie. So I just like him. I like him as an actor, I like him as a director. I don't know what he's written, so I can't say if I like him as a writer or not.
Yeah.
But I enjoy him.
I do too. I've always thought of him as a very approachable person, kind of a warm person. And I thought about this. I think it's because he seems to always play the underdog roles. He's always very vulnerable, like the love.
Oh, and Mystery Men. I love him in Mystery Men. Yes,
Of course, I saw that. I was like, oh, Ashley's going to love this.
Yep.
But I saw in the research, they called him the lovable loser. So many times he plays the
That's true.
lovable loser. And
That's true.
I was like, they are so right.
They are.
But he's very likable. What I know of Christine, I always thought she was very likable. And I really enjoyed digging into this episode because I found out so much about them both. But I feel like we would be remiss, and I know you agree with me 100%, if we just jumped into their love story without talking about his parents.
Yes, thank you.
Hollywood royalty.
Yes.
Hollywood royalty. Very, very famous. Tell us who they are.
Jerry Stiller and Ann Mira. Is that how you pronounce her last name?
Yeah.
Yes.
They were married 61 years. 61 years. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about
Please
them.
do. Yes, please do.
Okay. So for the first 20 years or so of their marriage or their collaboration, they did work as a team. In fact, Anne said that comedy wasn't really her thing, that Jerry kind of pulled her into it, but she felt like she was good at it. And they were so successful. They were known as the comedy duo Stiller and Mira, and they were on Ed Sullivan all the time. They had so many gigs, so popular. But around the 1970s, they decided to also start pursuing individual projects, and both found success with that too, although they would continue sometimes to appear together. Yeah.
They kind of remind me of George Burns and Gracie Allen. Like George Burns and Gracie Allen were like maybe the first iteration of a Hollywood comedy couple, and then they kind of took that mantle, if that makes sense. Like they were the next version of that.
Yeah. Well, just to kind of remind you of who they are, because you know them. You guys know them very well, probably. But many people know Jerry best recently for his roles in Seinfeld and The King of Queens. And Ann Mira, I did not watch the show, but it said in the sources, she's often most remembered for her role as Miranda Hobbs' mother-in-law in the show Sex and the City.
Oh.
And then going back a ways, she also had roles in shows like Rhoda, Archie Bunker's Place, All My Children.
Okay.
Yeah, lots of different things. Anne passed away in 2015 at the age of 85, and Jerry passed away in 2020 at the age of 92. And Ben has talked, so many times about the huge impact his parents have had on him. And I think it's clear how much they have meant to him, because for the past several years, he has been working on a documentary about his parents. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
But here he is. This is just a brief clip from his interview on The View. This came out just a few weeks ago, where he talks briefly about his parents and the documentary.
Is he an only child?
No, he has a sister named Amy.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
An amazing relationship was your mom and dad, who,
Yes.
I loved beyond measure. You are doing a documentary. Tell us about this, please.
Cool. I've been working on a documentary about them for the last 4 years, just about their life together, their relationship, working together. They worked together as a comedy team. They were married for 60-something years, and they kept it together. And they, honestly, like in my relationship, looking at their relationship, that was a part of, what I thought about and how they did that and how they got through the ups and downs. They kind of grew together, and it was not always great.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of tension having to work together and go on Ed Sullivan 35 or 36 times and that pressure. But they, had a love at the basis of it and a respect for each other and a willingness, I think, to look inside at their own stuff.
That's right.
And
the
keep
humor.
working.
The humor.
Yes, and the humor. The humor. Yeah, for sure.
Stiller and Mira were two magnificent performers. And they've created a wonderful performer here. Our thanks to Ben Stiller.
So thoughts about that before we go on?
He kind of looked like he was almost getting a little choked up at the end there.
I thought so too.
It's still hard to talk about them in past tense, maybe.
Yeah.
And 4 years to work on a project is a labor of love.
It is a labor of love. I thought of the exact same term. I mean, that says something. So he was actually a guest last June on his wife's podcast, Hey Dude, the 90s called.
Oh, that's right. I watched her on Hey Dude.
Did you?
That's where I've seen her. I loved Hey Dude. Boy. Yep. Okay.
So she co-hosts, by the way, with David Lasher. In his interview, he shared that one of the great benefits of being the son of Jerry Stiller and Ann Mira was the access it gave him to the entertainment industry.
Right.
He said, quote, "My parents were like out playing nightclubs and stuff. My parents were out there having to make a living, you know, in show business. They did a live act, Stiller and Mira. They were a comedy team, and then did a lot of television shows and guest appearances and game shows and, you know, variety shows. And then live performing and Broadway plays. And eventually my dad, you know, they both did television. So they were in everything.
They were prolific.
Yeah, crossing all the media. And sometimes he would get to go with them to LA to visit the set of a show, like the Brady Bunch or the Love Boat, or go to a nightclub while they were performing a comedy act. They would bring him on stage sometimes. He would get to go to a game show where one of them was making an appearance. Whatever their projects might be, a lot of times he got to kind of dip into them. And he said these experiences were just the fabric of their lives. It was just the normal for them. And he loved getting that access to it. In fact, another quote from him says, "For me, it was like everything. I loved it so much. I loved just to see the behind the scenes of what they were doing. I realized pretty young that I loved directing and movie making and was fascinated by that and wanted to learn about that." But the one downside that he has spoken about several times was that he didn't get to go on these trips all the time. He was, you know, living his life, being raised. So his parents many times were gone.
Yeah.
Their family lived in New York City. A lot of the work they did was in LA. And so Ben remembers lots of times when his parents weren't around to spend time with him and his sister Amy or to help them with their schoolwork. And at different times he said that he remembered thinking to himself, I need to do better when it comes to my kids. I need to make a point of this. Okay.
I wonder who was raising them when they were gone then.
Who knows? I mean, it might have been one parent was gone and the other
Yeah.
was
Oh,
home.
yeah.
It may have been they had a nanny.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Okay.
But still, Ben adored his parents and also respected them as professionals. In fact, a lot of times he would involve them in his project. You guys may remember this, that you might have seen his parents acting in some of the movies that he directed, or, you know, he would bring them in. And as we have now said a few times, he does have this documentary he's working on honoring them, which is supposed to be getting pretty close to release, I think.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that.
So I wanted to start with this section on Jerry and Anne because I do feel like, first of all, I want to honor their love story. I mean, it's just beautiful, right? But also it's going to
influence his.
Right. It's a foundation. It's a foundation for Ben and the relationship that he ends up getting into with Christine. But since we've been talking about Ben for a while, let's flip over now. We're going to do a little mini bio on Christine. Okay. She was born in 1971 in Allentown, Pennsylvania, to Joan and Skip Taylor, who owned a security company.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. And from an early age, Christine showed interest in acting. She performed roles in some of the local productions of Grease and Fiddler on the Roof while she was still a teenager. And then she managed to get cast in some commercials while she was still a teenager. And by the time she had graduated from high school in 1989, she had landed her big break as a cast member of, as you just said it,
Hey, dude.
on Nickelodeon.
Yes, I forgot about that.
Well, tell
Man.
us about her on that show, because I didn't watch it.
Wasn't it a Western? Like they worked at a dude ranch? Is that why it was called Hey Dude?
No idea.
Oh, man. I think that's it. I just remember, I thought she was, I can't remember what it was about. Just that I liked the show and
Well,
she was
does this
so
help?
pretty.
She played the perky lifeguard Melody Hansen.
Lifeguard.
That's what it said in my notes.
I don't know, guys, but it was a fun show.
Okay.
When I was a kid, I was like, yeah, hey, dude. I remember.
Well, obviously that was huge for her. And then after the show ended, she moved to LA where she started getting little guest spots on usually kind of teen focused series like Life Goes On, Saved by the Bell, Blossom, that type of thing. But she said all her life she had been told she looked like Marsha Brady.
She does.
She totally does, especially when she was younger
Yeah.
because they had the same build,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
everything. And by the way, we probably should say she looked like the actress who played Marsha,
Yes,
which is
yes.
Maureen McCormick.
Yes.
But regardless, she got cast to play Marsha in the very popular spoof The Real Live Brady Bunch at the Westwood Playhouse back in 1992. Now, this was big because she did go on to perform small roles in other movies over the next few years, but probably playing Marsha on stage is what helped her to win her breakout role as Marsha in the Brady Bunch movie that came out in 1995. Yeah. And then that opened the door for more roles for Christine over the next few years. Some of her work I'm not listing at all, but a few of her projects included starring as a bully in the movie The Craft, doing Marcia again in a Very Brady sequel, performing some guest spots on Seinfeld and Friends, and playing Holly, the best friend of Drew Barrymore's character in The Wedding Singer, which came out in 1998.
Okay.
Yeah. So that brings us about to the point where she's going to meet up with Ben Stiller. So let's go back to Ben and talk about his career for just a few minutes. Okay. He was actually born in 1965, which makes him about 6 years older than Christine. And as we've already said, because of his background, he had access to and was interested in the workings of TV and filmmaking from a very young age. And because of his life circumstances, he was able to get a very early start in the entertainment industry. According to his bios on Turner Classic Movies and Wikipedia and IMDb, he was only around 9 when he made his acting debut on a TV show that his mother briefly starred in, and he was only 10 when he began shooting films on his Super 8 camera.
Aww.
And as we've already said, at different times throughout his childhood, he would get to make little guest appearances in some of his parents' projects.
Yes.
So he was very comfortable on stage. He was a performer from a young age, and he did get to perform in children's theater growing up. Then, while in high school, actually, I think he was only 15, he got to make an appearance on the Guiding Light soap opera. He only had one line, but still.
But still.
But still.
You're there.
And he was also the drummer of they called it a post-punk band called Capital Punishment, which actually released a studio album in 1982. After high school, he enrolled in UCLA as a filmmaking student, but dropped out and moved to New York to take classes at the Actors Studio and try to pursue his acting career while also waiting tables.
As you do.
Which I was like, good for his parents to let him make
Experience
his own way.
that.
Exactly. And then things started happening for him. I am not going to touch on everything. This is going to be a very superficial, quick look at some of the highlights, but here's basically how it played out. His first big break was getting a part in the Tony Award-winning Broadway revival of The House of Blue Leaves. So that was a stage performance. And then shortly after that, in 1987, he made his feature film debut in Steven Spielberg's Empire of the Sun.
Oh.
That's going to help your career.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
When Steven says you're good, you're good.
And I'm telling you, Ben kept getting some really amazing breaks.
Yeah.
Because not long after that, he caught the attention of Lorne Michaels. He had made this little parody of The Color of Money. He had directed this, and somehow they saw it, and Lorne Michaels decided they were going to show that short on SNL.
Oh, okay, so he wasn't a cast member on SNL. They just showed a short, or was he?
Hang on.
Oh,
After putting that short on SNL, they hired him.
Oh.
And they said, you're going to be a feature performer and a writer. But he wasn't getting to write. He quit after only 4 episodes, which people were like, you quit Saturday Night Live? I mean, but he said that performing, it made him too nervous to do that live.
Yeah, me too. I feel that, Ben.
And he really wanted to create. He wanted to write. He wanted to direct. So he stopped. But my observation with Ben is throughout this entire time period, he always tended to fall forward because...
Well, could it be because of his parents, or do you think it was just his...
I think that it doesn't hurt to have parents like that, but I also think it was straight up some of his own talent and tenacity because he was really smart. He was really smart and he was really good. So within a year or two, he was starring in a sketch comedy show called The Ben Stiller Show.
Nice.
Yeah, and I didn't really understand how this played out. It sounded like it started on MTV and then it moved to like Fox. But basically, this is the early 90s. It did get canceled very quickly for poor ratings, but it won an Emmy for outstanding writing in its category. So that's pretty cool.
That's your first letter in the EGOT, Ben.
And more doors kept opening because he was approached right around that time about directing his first film, Reality Bites.
Oh, I did not realize he directed that.
I did not either until I was doing this research. Yeah. He said he worked on rewriting the script and recruiting the cast for about a year and a half. And then, of course, he also co-starred in it because he tends to do that. Most of his projects, he'll write, he'll direct, he'll produce, and he'll also play a role many times. But that movie came out in 1994. And then over the next several years, lots of other projects. I'll name a few. He directed The Cable Guy with Jim Carrey, also played a small role in that. He had some acting parts, such as in Flirting with Disaster and an uncredited role in Happy Gilmore. But the movie that shot him to stardom was There's Something About Mary that came out in 1998, the same year that they started filming Mystery Men.
Yes.
Which came out in 1999.
Which is the one I like. That's the one I think shot him to stardom, but okay, something about Mary.
And this brings us to the point where Ben and Christine finally meet.
Aw.
Yeah. Like many of, I think it's basically all of the love stories we've covered this month, these two first crossed paths on the job. Ben was directing the TV pilot for a show called Heat Vision and Jack. Have you ever heard of this?
Not at all.
Okay, this is funny.
Yeah.
In fact, I just had to go down this rabbit trail just a
Okay,
tiny bit
okay.
because this is so bizarre. But I'll go ahead and give you the spoiler alert, which is it did not get picked up.
Well, obviously.
They were doing the pilot for it, and it did not make it on the
Okay.
air. But this is so funny that I thought I would let you hear it. This is a little clip of Ben explaining the concept behind this show to Seth Meyers on his talk show.
Okay.
In some cases, you made a pilot to series, and now this is actually praise.
Yeah.
Because Heat Vision and Jack,
Yes.
this was a VHS tape in
Right.
the comedy community that was a huge deal, and this is early. I think probably the first time any of us saw Jack Black.
Yeah,
a lot of us.
this is 26 years ago.
Yeah.
Does anybody know what this thing is?
Yeah. So that's
Really?
about right.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's a pilot that was never picked up, and it starred Jack Black as an astronaut. It was created by Dan Harmon and Rob Schraub, and he's an astronaut who flies too close to the sun. So when he comes back to Earth, his brain expands when the sun is up, and he becomes the smartest man in the world.
Yeah.
And then when the sun goes down, he's a normal human. And his friend, who was an astronaut, got melded into a motorcycle, and it's the voice of Owen Wilson.
Yeah.
And the hot sheriff is my wife, Christine Taylor,
Yeah.
who I met when we made this pilot.
Unbelievable.
26 years ago. And Ron Silver is the bad guy.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, is that not hysterical?
That is, and that's how he met his wife.
Yes, and also it's so fun to see how things play out because he said that was one of the first times Jack Black
Yeah.
had ever been introduced to entertainment.
And Owen Wilson.
And I think it started their relationship with each other.
Yeah, they've done a lot of stuff together.
I love it. But let's flesh this out just a little bit more. Back in 2016, Ben talked a bit about his first encounter with Christine, which we know now happened through this experience. This was in an interview he gave with Parade magazine. He said, quote, "I was directing a pilot for Fox starring Jack Black called Heat Vision and Jack. My wife came in to audition for the role of the sexy sheriff. She had been in the Brady Bunch movies and they were pushing her on me. She came in and she was great. I was single. I'd come out of a long relationship with Jean Triplehorn." Did you know that? I'm gonna
No,
pause
I
for a
thought you were
second.
gonna say Janine Garofalo because I know
They were
did.
together at some
Uh-huh.
point. This surprised me.
yep.
Didn't know about that. Moving back into the quote, "Christine was coming out of a relationship too. We went on a date and it clicked. We were both on the rebound and we just jumped." So after that date, things moved pretty fast for this
Yeah,
couple.
I know they got married really fast.
They did. They did. They both have said that things just felt right to them. They did click. In that same Parade interview, Ben said, "I proposed to Christine when I was rehearsing Meet the Parents.
Oh,
I asked her father for permission before I did it. It was like Meet the Parents in real life because Christine's father is an intimidating guy who owns a security company."
Yep.
Yeah, we're good friends now, but at the time I was in the basement rec room saying, "I really would like to marry your daughter." He's a man of few words, but he was very welcoming. I was more nervous asking him than asking her.
Oh, well, I think he knew what she was gonna say.
Right,
He may not have
right.
known what the dad was gonna say.
I believe I recall her saying that they'd only been dating around 6 months
Yeah, it was
before they
fast.
were engaged, and their engagement was only 6 months.
Ah.
So
From meeting to married is like a year.
I think it actually ended up being slightly less. But they were married on May 13th of 2000 in Hawaii.
Oh, well, that's lovely.
Right, yes. So I know we did a lot of background on these two, but we finally have them together. Let's take a break here and continue discussing their love story when we come back, including a long and painful breakup. All right, we'll be back soon.
Today's the 25th, which means that yesterday was your birthday.
And tomorrow's your birthday. Ooh, and you know what would make a great gift?
Besides a Dr. Pepper and a brownie?
No. A 5-star rating and review.
You're gonna give me one? I accept. Thank you.
No, our listeners.
Oh, okay. Or they could even share an episode with a friend.
Yes, exactly.
I love it. Plus a Dr. Pepper and a brownie.
And we are back. So, we've already said that Ben enjoyed working with his family, but I don't think we've said this. He brought his sister in sometimes too.
Did he? I
yes.
did not realize he had a sister.
And apparently they were very close growing up. He has shared some of their memories of when they were in the house together, and Anne and Jerry would be working on some of their bits, and he and his sister would be in their rooms kind of listening, and they would tap to each other or have little conversations. So I think they've always been close, and he will often give her small roles. I did not dig into this very deeply, but off the top of my head, I recall he gave her a role in Reality Bites, and she's had a small role in Severance.
Cool.
So, but moving on, Ben and Christine, once they were together, they found they also really love working together. So their first feature film collaboration was pretty much right away. They got married in 2000, and they were in the 2001 movie Zoolander together.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Christine played journalist Matilda Jeffries, who was the love interest for the male model character played by Ben, who, of course, also directed this movie.
And sometimes I get her and Christina Applegate mixed up.
Oh, really?
Yes, because I thought that she was the girl in Anchorman, but I think that was Christina Applegate. And then I may have thought that Christina was the girl in this.
Okay.
They don't look anything alike. There's not. It's just in my head. I don't
Similar
know.
names.
Not really. Well, I guess so. Christine and Christina. Maybe that was it.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with nothing, but just there you go.
Well, the next big event in their lives was when they expanded their family with the birth of their daughter, Ella, on April 9th of 2002. And then in 2004, they were in another movie together, also directed by Ben, Dodgeball, a true underdog story.
I have not seen that, but
It's goofy, but it's fun.
I have heard a writing podcast that I used to listen to said that it was almost it was like the perfect plotted film.
Really?
Yeah, and I've never seen it.
Oh, see, I mean, it's also probably about your mindset when you view it, but I recall it's been so long ago, but in my mind, it was just kind of a goofy, fun movie. Yeah. But these two love working together. Ben told IGN back in 2004, quote, "It was fun. We had fun and we were laughing a lot. We got to spend time together, which was good. When you're working, you don't get to do that. And we just connect on that level. We laugh at the same things, so it was actually really fun and therapeutic. It's always good to throw balls at each other. It would be good therapy, good couples therapy." He always has to be funny. But he loved it. Christine agreed. She shared in one of her interviews that it was just a great experience all around. I mean, we had a blast. But she did go on to say, she was kind of reflecting that it was a very different dynamic filming this movie because now they had Ella, who was very young, compared to their experience when they were filming Zoolander, which was right after their wedding. She said, "This is the first movie we did together since having our daughter, so there were endless challenges personally. When we did Zoolander, we were newly married. It was sort of almost an extended honeymoon." And then a year later, in July of 2005, they had their second child, a baby boy named Quinlan. Okay. Now, both did continue to work through this time frame. Ben is doing lots of projects. He's acting, he's directing, he's doing it all. In fact, we've got Meet Your Parents and Night at the Museum.
Yeah.
Both of those series are going on, and those were huge, but he had other things on top of them. Christine was also working. She was doing guest appearances on shows like Curb Your Enthusiasm, Arrested Development, that type of thing, and also some roles in films like Kablooey and License to Wed. But her career was slowing down through this period because she was taking fewer jobs
To be with the children.
to spend more time with her children. So in 2008, she did appear in the film Tropic Thunder, which Ben wrote, directed, and acted in. But it was after the film's premiere that she decided kind of formally to take a break from acting to focus on the family. Now, in a People magazine article, she is quoted talking about this as saying, "It never felt like a big decision for me. It happened so naturally. When I married Ben, I just decided to go with him. He travels so much. It was a no-brainer. I wanted to be with him. And sometimes I got to be in his movies and work with him, which I loved. Then, when I had Ella, my whole world changed. I couldn't believe how much love I had for this little creature. I wanted to be a part of it all. I didn't want to miss anything. And with Ben working as much as he does, I felt it was important for one of us to be the stability in the family." And now Ben is also spoken about Christine's move to step back from her career in order to focus on the family. And he's talked about being grateful for that decision and saying how fortunate he and the kids are that she chose that path. So that's kind of where we are, right? His career is really taking off. She's focusing more on the family. And there is an Esquire magazine article that came out just a couple years ago, February of 2022, it really goes into a lot about Ben's life and especially his perspective now and how it's changed. But it was kind of interesting because this article did this nice little summary. They basically said there were a number of years, and it's around this time frame and even before this, where it seemed like he was on fire. It was one success, one exciting new opportunity after another, and they were just almost falling in his lap. And then suddenly everything changed. Here's a quote from that Esquire article. In 2014, he was treated for an aggressive form of prostate cancer. In 2015, his mother Ann Mira died at age 85 after having a serious stroke. The following year, Zoolander number 2 flopped spectacularly, and while the failure of a zany comedy isn't a tragedy, especially compared to losing one's mother, when it's an international spectacle that you conceived, wrote, directed, starred in, and produced, and it seems like the whole world is watching it fail, it is, Stiller says, not a great experience. In 2017, his 17-year marriage to Christine Taylor unraveled and they separated. And because they're famous, it felt like the whole world was watching that too. His father, Jerry Stiller, died in May 2020 at age 92.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. When I read that paragraph and saw it was just one hit after the other, I was like, oh my goodness, that's a lot. That's a lot. But this is where it mentions the breakup.
Okay.
And let's go ahead and dig into that. Let's give a little more detail. So they did announce their separation in May of 2017, and this was the joint statement that they gave. With tremendous love and respect for each other and the 18 years we spent together as a couple, we have made the decision to separate. Our priority will continue to be raising our children as devoted parents and the closest of friends. We kindly ask that the media respect our privacy at this time. So they never actually filed for divorce, and they did live separately. They lived in separate homes, but would often appear as a family in public together, or even sometimes together as a couple to go to like screenings or different things. They were always very friendly, very amicable. You would occasionally even see them hold hands or something like that, but they were apart, separated for several years. And then the pandemic hit in 2020, and they decided it would be best for Ben to move back into the family home.
So they could all be together.
Exactly. And to make sure that with all the early lockdowns that,
Right.
he wouldn't be, in a situation where he couldn't see his kids for a long time.
Right.
So Christine, in a recent interview with Drew Barrymore, was telling Drew how things kind of played out. So I'm going to let you hear this from Christine.
That you and Ben separated and then, reconnected in the pandemic.
Yeah.
Is that not every person's fantasy that you will find your way back? How did you do it? I feel so lost.
I mean, it was for us. We got married very quickly after meeting each other. We knew each other 6 months, got engaged. We were married within a year, and then had Ella the next year. And I think for us, life just you especially in this business and careers and a lot of work and family was always a priority, but I think Ben and I both sort of started to grow in different directions. And when we made the decision to separate, it was not something we wanted to talk publicly about. It was not something we took lightly either. It was sort of we're both at sort of this impasse of let's figure out what's best, what is best for us at this chapter in our lives. And this is going back 3 or 4 years. And that time apart for each of us to sort of get to know who we are, I think we have these growth spurts even as adults. And I feel like we needed just some time to figure that out. So and always stayed a family unit, always continued to do things together, continued to see shows together, birthday parties, all of it. And so, that when the pandemic hit and we all had to sort of figure out where we were going to hunker down, we all ended up in our house together. with two teenagers. And you know, we found this way back of like, we had so much time to talk. We had time to, there were no other distractions. So it was a really special time for us, for the family. I mean, it was, you know, it was all done. It just happened organically and naturally.
It shifted so
for
much
us, yeah.
in all of us and our perspective and our time and the way we live our life. I mean, that is just so wonderful.
So I liked hearing it from her.
I did too.
Yeah, and the fact that they had so much time to talk. Ben said in a different interview that it wasn't like they reunited right away. They were quarantined and living in that house for a long time before they decided
to make it official.
Yes, we're going to get back together. So they really took their time with it, I think, and got to know each other again.
I like that. I like how thoughtful they are. And say what you want about Drew, she is such a thoughtful listener, because you could see she was so engaged in what Christine was saying. And I don't know, I like that she gave her the space to talk and feel comfortable to talk.
I agree with you. Well, Ben was quoted in a Newsweek article as saying, talking about the reconciliation, I'm so grateful for it. And I think not that many people do come back together when they separate.
No, they don't.
There's nothing like that when you come back. You have so much more appreciation for what you have because we know we could not have it. Yeah. So since the reconciliation, it's been a few years now. Of course, Ben has continued to work on some really big projects. We've been talking about Severance this whole time, but he has spoken openly about how he's shifted some of his priorities since then. Some things have changed, not just in their relationship, but in even how he addresses work. So you'll recall, we talked about this at the top of the episode, how he missed his parents sometimes growing up and how he was determined he was going to try.
I'm going to do better.
Yeah, I'm not going to repeat that pattern. Well, in that same Esquire interview that I've already mentioned, he shared that his daughter Ella, who, by the way, let me just tell you really quickly, she is now 22.
I can't believe that. People that I grew up watching now have 22-year-old kids. What does that mean about me? How old am I?
Well, she graduated from Juilliard and is working on her own acting career now.
Good for her.
I know. But she has spoken with Ben, he says, more than once about her feelings about his not being there during her childhood.
When you said that Christine made the decision to stay home, I was like, Ben, you're doing exactly what your parents did.
Well, here's an excerpt from this interview, this article. She's pretty articulate about it. And sometimes it's stuff that I don't want to hear, Ben said. It's hard to hear because it's me not being there in the ways that I saw my parents not being there. I had always thought, well, I won't do that. While Ben noted that it didn't feel great to hear Ella say that, he said it was important to acknowledge, that's quote, that's his words, her feelings. But then it's that thing that, like, I was trying to navigate my own desire to fulfill the hopes and dreams that I had too. So he's kind of thinking about his perspective, about how he knew he wanted to fulfill his own dreams, but he heard what she was saying. And he went on to say he realized it wasn't that his kids resented his work or wanted him not to work. He realized what they were saying to him was, but we needed and wanted quality time with you. He said they just want a parent who's emotionally present and supportive of them. That's probably what they want more than for me to be going off and pushing the bounds of my creativity. So since this time, it talks about in this article how he's made such a point of trying to be there more for them. In fact, in this particular article, his son had actually suffered an injury because at that time he was still in high school. I think it was a knee injury. And he canceled meetings that day and went off to take his son to the doctor. And they were kind of making that point. His perspective, his priorities have changed. And by the way, his son Quinlan is now 19, and though the family is very private about what he's up to, I did find that he had shared on a LinkedIn, it was actually his profile on LinkedIn, that he is currently in college pursuing a degree in acting.
Nice.
Sounds like both of them are following.
That's a lot of DNA to fight if you're not going to be an actor.
Yeah. So to bring this to a close, Ben and Christine have both shared that it was hard to be separated for that time, that it was painful to be separated for that time. But for them, the blessing of getting to come back together, of having that opportunity to reconnect has been so valuable, that they appreciate each other more than ever, that their relationship is very strong now. You see them all the time. By the way, they both love tennis. So you'll see them not only at entertainment events, but you'll see them at like games and things. But the point is, they're both grateful it worked out. And it's also made their family stronger.
Yeah.
So in this particular episode, it wasn't just love will keep us together. It was
brought us together.
Right. Brought us back together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Armchair Psychologist.
And that brings us to the armchair.
Okay.
Well, first I'm going to ask you, so what stands out to you about this particular love story?
Well, I'm very glad that we chose them. There was a couple other couples that we could have gone with, but I think it was important to both of us. I think I'm speaking for both of us when I say that the other three couples seemed to find each other, find their way to each other, and then stay together. I mean, they were just in it thick and thin, years and years and years, no problems whatsoever.
Well, and if there were problems, they weren't public. We didn't know about them because I'm sure probably there were challenges we didn't address.
Right. Yeah. But I think it's important to show a couple that had to say, we need this. We grew apart. We need this break. But then came back together. And it's not like in the Elizabeth Taylor, Richard Burton way where they were dramatic and they separated and then they got back together and then it was married, divorced, like drama. This is almost like regular people just loved each other. We're going to be quiet about it. We love each other so much that we just need the space. We don't know what we're going to do with it, but we're going to figure things out and then coming back together. So I thought that was beautiful too.
I appreciate the vulnerability to share that he felt that way about his own parents, feeling like he didn't get the attention he hoped he would have and not wanting to make that same mistake and then having
doing it.
Yeah, and his daughter calling him on it. And I don't know, I mean, let's be real. This is their private business.
Yes.
We don't have a right to know all this stuff about them. But knowing that they're in the public eye, I think they shared it because they're like, maybe this will give somebody else hope, or maybe this will open an opportunity for other people to think about, or give them some kind of perspective that might be helpful. Who knows? But
I think in Ben's case, he plays the lovable loser or kind of the dumb guy, but he is so much smarter than he shows to us. And in the film, like The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, and in his directing, I think he's showing more of his true self. And that if I had a criticism of his career, which I don't have a lot of them, I enjoy his work. I think sometimes I'm like, Ben, you don't need to be this silly. Like, this is a little too silly. You're better. It sounds judgy to say you're better than that, but I mean it in a kind way. Like, you're so smart. You don't need to play this fool to this extent. Like, let me see some of I would love to see him, and maybe he has done one, and if he has, let me know, a fully dramatic role.
Well, I think that's what's so interesting about this Severance project.
Because it is fully dramatic.
He's not acting in it, but it is the most, I mean, I don't mean this in a negative way, but the word bizarre comes to mind.
Well, look at the pilot he directed.
Right. It is so out there, which is part of what makes it so engaging because you can't wrap your mind around it.
Yeah.
But he has said in different interviews that people have really been shocked because this is so different out of the box for him. And he's gotten so much praise for it. And I think this is him saying there are other sides to me too.
Yeah, or this is more me than the me I've been showing you.
Yeah. But I can see where if you grow up as the son of comedy legends.
Yeah, I can see that too.
Yeah, I get it. I get it that was his first instinct. That's his comfort level. And maybe now he's broadening.
And becoming his own man.
Yeah. Any way you look at it, I appreciate both of them for being so open. I think they make an adorable couple.
They do.
Both very talented. Yeah. And it sounds like they're both great parents, too.
Yeah, and I like that about them, too.
Yeah. So, a big cheers to you, Ben Stiller and Christine Taylor. Cheers.
Cheers.
If you love what we do, please rate and review our show or become a supporter through Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon. Whether a single gift or recurring monthly donation, your support is what allows us to keep the tea brewing.
Subscribe on your favorite podcast app or the Scandal Water Podcast YouTube channel, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Show notes are available at our website, scandalwaterpodcast.com, where you can also access the merch store and more.
This episode was executive produced by Candy Thomas, that's me, and Ashley Raymer Brown,
that's me.
It was researched and written by Candy Thomas and edited by Ashley Raymer Brown.
A special thank you to Josh Martin, who wrote, composed, and performed the Scandal Water theme and other music. Matt C. Adams, who created the artwork, and Joshua Reeve, who designed our website and provides ongoing technical support.
As a reminder, this podcast is purely for entertainment purposes. The thoughts and opinions of the host during each episode of Scandal Water are their own and do not reflect the opinions of any future guests, advertisers, or clearly professional psychologists. Thanks for listening.